Assalamu alaikum and welcome everybody to the Halal Times YouTube channel. My name is Hafiz Maqsood Ahmed. Today we got a very special guest from the United States of America. His name is Wajahat Ali and he's one of the most famous Muslim journalists in the US. He's written columns for the New York Times, The Atlantic, the Washington Post, the Guardian, and the New York Review of Books. He frequently appears on television for his brilliant and incisive political commentary. Before we go any further, let me ask him one thing. Wajahat, go back to where you came from. You the terrorist, the Paki, the brownie. What is it? Is it the name of an upcoming movie? Or maybe the name of a book you're going to publish in the coming days? Or what else?
Assalamu alaikum, Maqsood Saab. Thank you for having me on your podcast. Go back to where you came from is what oftentimes many of us, not just Pakistanis or Muslims, or anyone who's listening, I think they've heard that at least once in their life. Most people, not all people. Usually if you're a person of color in Europe, or maybe a Pakistani in Japan, or even though I was born and raised in America, I get emails every day. And so I always sit there and I'm, okay, so do you want me to go back to California where I was born and raised? Do you want me to go back to Pakistan even though I wasn't born there? Do you want me to go back to pre-partition India where my father was born, right? It's a ridiculous question. But the question is, go back to where you come from. Where'd you come from? And I'm like, I'm from right here. That statement, rather, is the title of my forthcoming book, which is coming out January 25th. It's called Go Back to Where You Came From, and other helpful recommendations on how to become American. And, if you sit there and you smile and cringe, that's what it's supposed to do. Is we get told something so hateful and painful, and how do you deal with it? Do you deal with it with anger or sadness? And sometimes you can also deal with it with humor, and to slap back the prejudices and the ignorance and the stupidity, and hopefully create a better environment and community for our children moving forward.
I'm sure millions of people recognize you in North America and so many other countries. But we got an audience from around the world. Some of the viewers may not know who you are as a person, what you do, and how you've come this far in your journey as a famous journalist in the US. Could you please let us know a bit about some of the major milestones of your life and the route you've taken to become a famous journalist of today?
Most people don't know today's Wajahat Ali or yesterday's Wajahat Ali. You're very kind. Most people don't know me. They probably think I'm their Uber driver, and they give me 5 stars. So that's fine by me. Honestly, I'm not joking. People mistake me for their Uber driver sometimes, or the taxi cab driver. I'm coming out. There's no shame in this. Most of us, as you know, South Asians, we dominate the service industry when it comes to transportation. But it's just like a couple of weeks ago, I was in a suit and tie, and the guests are like, "Where's my car?" And I'm like, I don't know. I'm waiting for my car. But then, in these moments, some people get angry. But I wish one day I could just take the guy's chabi, his keys, and just drive off. Or maybe I should just take the money and keep the tip and give it to the other drivers. But I'm a simple man, and I was born in California. I'm also left-handed, which makes me a jinn. I didn't speak English until I was 5 because Dada, Ammi, Abu, who used to stay with us. This was a very traditional setup in America that my grandparents used to stay with us. They didn't teach me English. So when I went to school, I knew no English. I just knew shut up and idiot, because my mother used to say shut up, idiot. And and I was also very mashallah, which is a nice way of saying very fat. And I was very healthy and shy. And that same shy, fat kid who was left-handed and the only Muslim oftentimes ended up graduating from UC Berkeley with an English major. So the first thing I wrote was about 20 years ago, when I was a student at UC Berkeley and 9/11 happened. I think Muslims are going to get hit for the next 10 years. You're very talented. I've never read an American story from a point of view of Pakistanis and Muslims. Write me that play. For people who are listening, especially if you come from many, not all, Asian, South Asian communities, you can only be a few things. No one wants to, you could do it on the side. Hobby hai, achhi hobby. It's a good hobby. But I always knew I was a bit different, right? Like creative stuff. So my parents always encouraged me. I went to law school and I got the law degree. I thought I'd become a licensed attorney, but one thing led to another. And I was doing law during the day. I was trying to put on my play at night, and late at night, I was writing articles. And you fast forward now 10 years, all those things came together. And thankfully, knock on wood, I'm able to make a living as a writer, and my book is coming out in 2 weeks.
You've been speaking a lot about the marginalization of Muslims in the US and around the globe. What is the nature of the problem and how did it start? Who is responsible for Islamophobia and this othering of Muslims?
The problem is multiple, let's just keep it focused to Muslims within, say, Europe and America. Even that's different. America, thanks to its immigration policies, thanks to its the concept of diversity at the very least, we were able to come here for the most part, integrate, succeed, and we felt like we too were American, right? And because of religious freedoms and liberties, Muslims in Muslim majority countries are always kind of curious. They're like, why are you Muslims in America so religious? The freedoms allowed us to create our mosques, right? And also you could be Muslim and American. You could be Desi and Muslim and American. You could be Arab and Muslim and American. You could be religious, not religious, right? These freedoms helped us, for the most part, feel that we too are American and we too can have success. Now in Europe, the difference was that they didn't have this model. They didn't have this narrative. They didn't even have a policy. They expected all these Turks and South Asians and Arabs to come work and then leave. They never did. And so for them, European is often defined very narrowly by white and Christian. And that's why you see that much more ghettoization of predominantly Black and brown Muslims in France, in Germany, in England. Much more so, they face much more of the marginalization than we do in America. But the problem here, if you're witnessing, especially in the past 5 years, is that Muslim has become the common enemy of white supremacists and white nationalists, both in America and in Europe, right? They see us as the invaders. They see us as the threat. They see us as, the refugees who are going to come and invade and take over their country. It's very similar fears. Back in the day, it was the Irish Catholic, it was the Chinese, it was Japanese. In America, remember, it was Japanese American citizens who were interned for no reason during World War II. Because of the war on terror, especially the last 20 years, the enemy became anything called Islam and Muslims. That became the enemy. And that includes those poor Sikh brothers and sisters who aren't Muslim, just brown, who are also the victim of hate crimes. So what we're witnessing now in America, in Europe, and also in India, in Sri Lanka, in China, is the rise of these authoritarian movements. And the way they're coming to power is they're telling the people, these invaders are coming after you. These monsters, these savages, this violent horde, this caravan. That's what's happening with Hindu nationalism in India. It's happening in Sri Lanka. It's happening in Myanmar. It's happening in China. It's happening in Europe. It's happening in America. And so these are the problems that we're facing. And unfortunately, Muslim majority countries, their leaders have failed the population. They have failed, I would say, the ethics of Islam. They have failed in democracy. They have sold out their people for profit and money and power. And they turn a blind eye to oppression. And really, they can't say anything because they oppress their own people as a result of, the failure and the falling of the Ottoman Empire and World War II and World War I, specifically World War I, colonization, imperialism, right? Where, it's like you're always struggling. You're outnumbered and outgunned. And in these other countries, like, we're the minority. We're still a person of color who's the minority. And then there's the war on terror. So it always feels like no matter what we do, we're outnumbered and we're outgunned. And the one positive here is despite all of that, you've seen, at least in America, I can tell you as an American Muslim, in the last few years, because of Trump and the Muslim ban, a lot of people who didn't take us seriously when it came to bigotry, Islamophobia, they're like, you were right. We should have paid attention. This is an American problem. This is a European problem. Oh, look, when they went after Muslims, we kept quiet, but they're going after Mexicans and immigrants and Black people. Now you're seeing this moment where Muslims have to get out of their bubble and make alliances with other groups that we didn't make alliances with. And people are saying we are all in this together because the same forces are trying to suppress all of us.
Do you think that Muslims are also to be blamed in this regard?
In America, I've said that the test for America is whether or not it stretches and expands the country and what it means to be an American to include all of us. If it keeps restricting, which what you're seeing is the tension between those who want to restrict America. They want to take us back to 1953, whereas black and white people in power, mom and dad, just very simple, this romantic idea of an America. But what about the rest of us? We're not going back to 1953. And so will the country stretch and expand to include the rest of us, or will it constrict? If America constricts, it's not going to last. White supremacy is self-destructive. There's no way. If it expands and stretches, we all have a chance. Will America and Europe expand to include Muslims as fellow Americans? If it does, that means the American dream is possible. Will Europe expand to include us? And if it fails to include us, it means it will implode. Because if you really pay attention, Muslims in particular, most of us in Europe and America are people of color, black and brown. One of the tests is how these countries view their Muslim neighbors and citizens, if they embrace us or they reject us. That will be the test to see whether or not we can make it.
Where do we go from here and rise to the occasion and actually do something to turn the tide?
I mean, in America, what was my crime? There's Muslim criminals, there's white criminals, there's black criminals, there's brown criminals, right? There's Muslim engineers, there's Muslim people who are lazy, there's Muslim people who work. Like, why am I being blamed for the violent actions of 19 foreign hijackers who brought down the two towers, 15 of them from Saudi Arabia, I think 2 from UAE, 1 from Lebanon, 1 from Qatar. My family's from Pakistan. I was born here. Why am I blamed for it? And the similar to say, like, are white people to be blamed for white supremacy? Like, the number one domestic terror threat in America is white supremacist terrorism. You don't see them surveilling all white people or asking all white people to apologize for the actions or asking where are the moderate whites. But when a Muslim does it, all of us are held suspect. The enemy and the threat becomes this thing called Islam and Muslims. All of us. And so I think that's why I reject that we're to be blamed. I'm not to be blamed for my community being surveilled simply for existing. I'm not to be blamed for my community being assaulted and for women being hit with hate crimes just because you're afraid. At the same time, I think what you're getting at are Muslims in these countries and Muslim leaders and organizations not doing enough to not assimilate, because I don't want to assimilate in anything, but to integrate, to share our story, to be proactive. And this is where my generation, look, I'll be honest, I was critical. I said so many of us decided, not all of us, but so many of us decided we're going to live in a cocoon, a little bubble, keep your head down, become a doctor, engineer, businessman, be happy, be khush, keep quiet. Don't run for office, don't vote, don't engage, don't use your money wisely, don't become a storyteller, don't become a writer, don't become a journalist. But then what happens? You go home, you turn on the TV and you complain about the media. You don't get in and try to change the rules. You know, you have to have a strategy. Some people play the inside game, some people play the outside game. But if you don't work inside the system, you don't understand the system. You need people who are businessmen, people who are wealthy, people who are running for office, people at the local level, journalists, storytellers. We failed in the sense that we did not engage in the cultural and intellectual creative aspect of America. We just didn't. And in 2001, there were just no Muslim journalists. There was like a handful. But now you see this new generation has risen. And so, this is the way to do it. You need all of us out there.
Wajahat, as you know that we are a halal business channel, so I'd like to ask a couple of questions related to the media business. The internet has opened countless opportunities for freelancers and entrepreneurs in the media industry and so many other sectors of the global economy. What should we do to break the vicious cycle and show a positive picture of who we are as an ummah and how we can contribute to the peace and harmony in the societies we live in?
Look, it's tough industry to crack. Whether or not you should get in the industry or not, it's difficult because the industry is changing. It's very hard. You should do it if you love it. You should do it if you enjoy it. And if you do it, know, like most of us, you're going to have to make your money probably doing multiple things. You have to work hard where working hard is enough. You have to learn new skills. You have to be very tough and resilient. And you have to be opportunistic in the sense that you have to jump on an opportunity that presents in front of you to pay your bills, but doesn't mean you stop. So for me, with writing in particular, it wasn't that like I sat down like, Tika, I'm going to start writing now and overnight I'm going to be successful. No, it took years. It was a long, lonely uphill journey that took a long, long time. And, even now I'm often diversifying my portfolio and doing multiple things. You have to stay a step ahead. You have to read a lot. You have to engage and build a network, right? You have to get used to rejection. And you have to keep doing it again and again and again and again. And you get really good at what you're doing. And then you have a chance to actually break through. And then you have to make yourself open to doing new things. Like, I've never done a podcast, open yourself to it. I've never done TV, get training, right? I've never try to produce something. And I would recommend another thing to do is create your own content. And why I say that is you can wait your entire life. Like, you know this in business. If I do everything right, they'll tap me on the shoulder, and like a good monkey, I'll climb up the ladder. And some people, they wait their whole life waiting to get tapped on the shoulder. I didn't play that game. I said, I don't want to wait for anybody. I'm just going to do my own thing. So that's where the entrepreneurial spirit comes in, I think, where you kind of break out on your own, create your own independent product. That helps, I think, artists and writers get some autonomy and something that you can then sell and make a name for yourself, right? So I would recommend that we need more people to do this. And so what I say is, listen, I get it. I was an attorney. I used to practice law to pay the bills. I wasn't miserable. I just had more passion for this, right? And so I'll give you an example. Khalid Husseini of Kite Runner was a practicing doctor. And even after Kite Runner came out, he had to practice for 2 more years until his second book came. Once his second book came, he got enough money that he could leave. John Grisham, many people know, you see his books at airports. So what I'm trying to tell you is, just because it doesn't happen overnight, don't give up. You have to just chip away at it if you really want it. And you might have to do different vocations, and you might have to change around your timeline, and that's okay. That's what I meant by being opportunistic. You know your challenges, you know your bills, you know what you have to do at the current time. Do it, but don't give up. Just chip away. And that gives you the best opportunity and increases your percentages of maybe, inshallah, making it.
Wajahat, you've been successful in the media industry for almost 20 years now. I wanted to extrapolate from you about your journey in the US media industry, the challenges you've faced, and the lessons you've learned from others along the way. What is the key to your success, and what advice would you like to give to your younger self, and of course, a lot of other aspiring journalists of the future?
Start local. At the end of the day, you're only responsible for your own intentions and actions. There's a giant world. There's 8 billion people. And you live in a local community. So if you want a more positive image of Muslims and Islam, reflect that in your daily behavior. So don't underestimate your power and strength in your daily behavior and actions. Intervene, be proactive. In wherever you are in the schools, oftentimes ask them, hey, do you have books? Can I recommend some books? Can I come and give a talk during Ramadan to the students? If you're in a community where there's not too many Muslims, reach out to the churches and synagogues and say, can I come and have an open conversation? Can my community and your community work together to help the local homeless community, or do a food bank, right? Come around shared values. Run for local office. Let them see their fellow neighbor who happens to be Muslim actually advocating and coming up for their behalf and coming up with solutions to existing problems. Be the best at what you can be at what you do. That's what the Prophet Muhammad said, right? Do the best that you can. Try your best to integrate without assimilating, in the sense that, be a member of society, be engaged, help your neighbors. Why not? You live there, you pay taxes, you're just as American or British or Japanese and so forth as anyone else, even though people might tell you to go back. And so by starting at that local level and in using whatever talent you might have, because everyone has a different talent. Not everyone's meant to be a storyteller. Not everyone's meant to be a businessman. Not everyone's meant to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone's meant to be a politician. Not everyone's meant to be a teacher, but everyone has some talent. And you take what you're good at and you model a type of behavior, and you be that version of yourself. And if you be proactive, you have to be proactive. Don't be reactive. And now you have a chance and an opening to win over some hearts and minds. And what I'll also say, and this might be, this might be counterintuitive for people, is at the same time also, I would recommend be forgiving if you can. It's painful. Islamophobia hurts. It's we always have to be the nice person. We always have to hold our tongue. It's not fair. But if I may be Muslimi for a second, if you sometimes have some patience and tolerate someone's ignorance with the opportunity to giving them a chance to listen. You don't have to entertain it. Don't get slapped 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, right? But say, okay, if you're really sincere, let me meet you halfway. This is what you think about Muslims? Okay, well, let me tell you. And if that person still is not a good faith actor, you've done your job. But if that person, you've done your job, khalas, you move on. If that person, often, I'll tell you why, because a lot of times we're human beings, we say the right things, but we don't say what's in our heart. So think about what people think about Muslims, the stereotypes, the fears they have. And oftentimes I can't say this thing out loud because obviously it's politically incorrect and offensive, But if someone comes to you and there's an opening and says, listen, I hope you don't mind. This is what I've learned about Islam and Muslims. And you could be that person who helps educate them, even though it's not your job. You don't have to do this. It's an opportunity. And what I've seen is I give someone the benefit of the doubt and I see if they're sincere and if they're a good faith actor. And if that 10-minute investment can have a lifetime return on investment, because that person could be like, I met a Muslim and I asked him questions and he was a nice person and I'm ignorant. You just changed one person's mind. Everyone wants to be the Iron Man, right? But we're just people. Just work on your local community. Stop. Everyone says, ummah, I got to save the ummah. Just save your family first. If you work on that level, I guarantee you can create some tangible change that will have a positive impact on your life and your family's life.
Well, that's it for today. I really want to appreciate the time you've taken to speak with us. Thank you so much. Inshallah, I hope to be able to catch up with you again soon. Assalamu alaikum.
Take care.